Hi and welcome to part one of this Longines disassembly of a 28952 movement. This is a modified 2892 and has, as you saw, a sub dial at 6 o'clock for the seconds. I haven't shown the case back on this because this is actually a reproduction of a military Longines watch and is a limited edition run with a limited edition number on the case back, and as a result I didn't feel it would have been fair to actually show that, as the gentleman who owns it might not have wanted that shared. So here I'm removing the casing screws and the movement ring, at which point the movement can be removed from the case, and here I'm just removing the O-ring in readiness for replacing that with a new one after the service. So the first thing is to remove the hands, as usual. I prefer to use hand levers for this. I feel it gives me more control than the Presto type tool, although the Presto tools are quite useful in some circumstances. The seconds hand was seated very, very firmly, as you can see, so it took some gentle persuasion, but as you can see it did come away. Here I'm removing turning the eccentric screws which hold the dial feet. Unfortunately you can't really see that, so my apologies there, but there are two opposite one another, and they're eccentric screws with a flat side, and you turn them so that the flat is by the dial feet, and there you could see the aluminium movement spacer ring which fits around the rim of the dial, spacing the dial appropriately. Here you can see the modified front portion, the cover plate for the 2892 standard movement. And to begin with, I'm removing the automatic bridge. This is held on by 3 screws, and these screws are identified by the fact that they are black, where all the other screws on a 2892 are silver coloured, stainless steel. And ordinarily I would remove the oscillating weight and then go ahead and strip the dial side of an automatic movement first, but with the 2892 they're a little bit different, a little bit unusual in that the automatic bridge forms a large portion of the rear of the watch, and when it's removed, as you'll see in just a moment, it reveals a very minimalistic train bridge and a relatively small barrel bridge. And for that reason I'm using a plastic sheet under the front of the movement to protect the date ring. The piece that I just removed there was the hack lever that stops the balance wheel and thereby stops the seconds hand for the hacking function. And here I'm stripping off the oscillating weight, which is held on by 3 screws underneath, like so, and then the automatic winding components which sit under this small plate. This is the first time this particular watch has come apart for servicing, and accordingly some of the fitments are a little tight. The wheel that's come loose there fits on the other side, the upper side as it were, of the automatic winding works, and it's important to note that that must actually be in the correct position before fitting the bridge that holds all the wheels together. Otherwise it will not fit in afterwards. And here you can see the 4 wheels that make up the underside. Now I'm removing the balance. A little wiggle to free the balance wheel. Note also that the footage is speeded up somewhat here, so I'm not actually moving and jiggling these parts as forcefully as it may look. This is actually double the speed, just to make the video a little bit shorter. So then we remove the pallet bridge and the pallet fork. And here I'm just adding a little bit of wind to demonstrate how the train is slightly sticky, which when the gentleman brought it to me, he said it's not worn it for a while, and latterly it's been sort of misbehaving a little on the timekeeping, and with the evidence of the train being quite sticky there, that would explain why, if there's friction. I actually found on strip down a surprising amount of oil in this movement for a new movement that hasn't as yet been stripped or serviced. And the balance endstones particularly were what I would consider to be very heavily over oiled, and it's not a bad thing in the sense that while there's lubrication there, it will protect parts from wearing unnecessarily, but too much lubrication can actually be bad for the performance. And there you saw the escape wheel. The escape wheel is actually quite an unusual one on this watch. It's double-ended. It has gears at both sides, one of which is driven by the 4th wheel to turn the escape wheel, and then the gear on the other side, which passes through to the dial side, drives the gears that turn the small seconds at the 6 o'clock sub-dial, but you'll see those shortly when we get onto the stripping of the dial side. So with the train removed, the next item to be removed is the barrel bridge. This is held by 3 screws, which we've removed. And underneath the barrel bridge you can see you've got some more gears there, which are all part of the automatic winding system. The barrel is just lifted away with its ratchet wheel sitting on top, and the second wheel accordingly. And here I'm removing the cover plate, which covers the manual winding portion of the winding system, which includes the various gears and the click spring. And I will show you that off the movement in a little more detail in a moment, like so. Now we move on to the dial side, and the first thing to be removed is the main cover plate, and this covers the driving components for the second subdial. And again, as you can see, because this watch hasn't been worked on before, it was a little stiff and needed some gentle persuasion. You'll note that I'm using brass tweezers for a lot of the disassembly here to avoid marking any of the parts. And there you can see the second's driving wheel, and the brass wheel above that is driven from the escape wheel. It has a very small intermediate wheel here, and then the actual driving wheel for the second's hand at 6, which was the first one that I removed. With those parts out of the way, the next item I remove is the escape wheel bridge on the dial side. And the sole purpose of this particular part is to hold the pivot and gear on the dial side of the escape wheel. Next for removal is the date jumper spring and cover plate, and the intermediate gear which meshes in as part of that. You can see there's quite a bit of old lubrication that's sticking these parts together. That's the cover plate, and then this unit houses the jumper spring and the intermediate driving wheel for the date change. And then we can lift the calendar ring away. There was actually a small plate there which I neglected to add into the video. It's just a holding plate at the bottom with a single screw. And here I'm removing the fasteners for the setting lever spring and the dial side train cover plate. There's the minute wheel and the cannon pinion. And there's the setting lever spring. It's actually a combined setting lever and yoke spring. It's quite a clever design, and if you know the 2824 you will be familiar with the layout of that. These components are for the quick date change on the calendar wheel. And there I'm just demonstrating how the yoke and setting lever and various components interact together. It's quite a complex looking setup initially, but it's a system that does work very, very well. It's comprised of 3 components, so you've got the setting lever, the yoke, and then this plate which sits at the bottom, and they both interact with. The final parts to be removed are the winding pinion and the clutch, which just dropped into the movement holder there. I'll just tip those out and show you those. There was also an intermediate gear in there as well, which had fallen through from the quick date change mechanism. And with that, the movement is stripped and ready for the cleaning machine. So thank you for watching, and join us for the next video, and we shall see you then.